The term next gen might go down as the most criminally abused term in games journalism. I caught onto that fact rather quickly in my gaming career, and subsequently learned to block it out every time a marketer decided to slap that tagline on top of the seasonally overly polished and committee-designed AAA game. I'm telling you this so that you can understand the full weight of my words when I say that Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is truly a next-gen experience. For the uninitiated, Microsoft is less of a traditional game and more of a world. It's not even a simulator, it's just a world. An entire Earth inside your computer. It starts with a whopping 127 gigabyte download, but that's just the beginning. The initial install is all static models and back-end code. When you're playing the game, more data is streamed to you at a rate of about 1 gigabyte per hour. The need for such an intense delivery system? Microsoft Flight Simulator contains a 1-to-1 scale model of the entire Earth. Not just the Earth, but every mountain, forest, river, lake, city, town, and park on it. If you tried to save all the data required to play this game, it would total over 2 million gigabytes. To keep this manageable for the consumer, the data is streamed live from Microsoft servers, megabyte by megabyte, as you take to the skies and traverse the globe. And let me tell you, it's just as beautiful as the real thing. This isn't much of a surprise though. The virtual Earth on display is constructed from hundreds of thousands of real-life maps, countless satellite images, city photogrammetry, even meteorological data. All brought together beautifully thanks to cutting-edge graphics powered by an inordinate amount of algorithms and cloud computing. The thing about the game that simulates the entire Earth is that you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere at all. The pyramids of Giza, Saigon Square, New York, Niagara Falls, the Colosseum. When you have a personal copy of the entire world, you can see literally anything. But you don't. Nobody does really. When given the opportunity to explore the entire Earth, most players disregard that freedom and instead focus on the home front, the familiar, the safe. Why explore the unknown when you can stay safe with the intimate? The simple novelty of flying a virtual plane over your neighborhood is also a nice bonus. The largest landmark from your hometown is your old elementary school, so that's where you start. The stunning technology perfectly recreates the crumbling facade you once knew. You go further, past the corner store you used to sneak off to during recess. You go further, past the water park you spent your summers, and the nearby tree you had your first sexual experience against in high school. You take it all in. The city you grew up in, the city you never left. Everything is familiar, but different. A strange unreality is imbued within every pixel. It's hard not to pour over the flood of memories the journey brings you, but you're careful not to get distracted. You begin your descent. Thanks to the myriad of tutorials, hints, and optional assists, your flaps, engine power, landing gear, and yoke automatically comply with the Federal Aviation Administration's guidelines to ensure a smooth landing. Your little Cessna 152 touches down right next to your ex-girlfriend's house. And even though it's a game, and even though you haven't spoken to her in 5 years, you can't stop yourself from stealing a glance as you pass. As powerful as the technology powering Microsoft Flight Simulator is, it's still limited. Once on the ground, a lot of illusions fall apart. This is to be expected, of course. The game is meant to be experienced from the skies. Houses are buried into the ground, bisected by trees, smoothed over, textured incorrectly. Blocky cars drive through solid objects and sink below the pavement. There wasn't a single pedestrian in sight. It's uncomfortable, inhuman, and ever so unsettling. You try to ignore these feelings as you taxi your plane. You take a familiar right, then a familiar left. 50 feet, 40 feet. You feel your heart rate accelerate. 30 feet, 20 feet. Your fingers tremble at the keyboard, but you don't know why. 10 feet, 5 feet. You stop the plane. You open the door. Light from the aircraft's interior spills out onto the blurry mist-textured road. You climb out of the plane. The sunset throws an orange glow over everything before you. As realistic as the sky is in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the air feels like nothing. You stare at the building before you. Even as a blurry low-polygon representation, the resemblance is unmistakable. This is your home. You approach it, as you have so many times before. Only the wind is audible. No sense programming audio for the ground. It's a flight sim. Players will spend their time in the air. What you're doing right now wasn't anticipated. It wasn't planned for. You were never meant to be here. You walk through the bushes around the right side. From this close-up, it's obvious the world's foliage is made of two-dimensional textures. High-quality textures, but infinitely flat, and clipping through the right side of your house. Some of the flat bushes were programmed to always face you, always follow you. The illusion of the earth breaks just a bit more. You make your way forward, then freeze. One of the basement windows radiates light. The office. The room with your $2,000 gaming computer you built over the summer. The room you relax in after a hard day's work, or just a hard day's existing. The room you're currently sitting in playing Microsoft Flight Simulator. For the first time in a while, you pull your eyes from your computer screen and glance at the window to your left. Darkness glances back. In the game, you approach the window. Out of the game, you see movement. You stand up and take a step towards the black abyss outside your window. You catch another flash of movement. You walk right up to the glass and peer outside, but you see only your reflection, and your reflection only sees you. You slide the window open, but the reflection remains, staring, wide-eyed. It was alive. It was another you. You back away. The other you begins to climb through the window. He's graceless and unnatural. He trips over the windowsill and falls to the ground. You back up. Your back hits the wall on the opposite end of the room. At the same time, your copy stands up. You both stare at each other. There is a silence you aren't strong enough to break through. Through your peripheral vision, you can see yourself on the computer screen. A point of view perspective from the person before you, staring at you, staring at the computer screen. The whole scene is powered by the impressive algorithms and AI that make Microsoft Flight Simulator so realistic. For a while, you two just look at each other. You don't know what to do, but you know you have to do something. You can't both exist like this. Your mind races with possible action plans, but the other you acts first. Wordlessly, without even glancing at you, they cross the floor and sit down at your desk. The screen before them becomes an infinite loop of your computer screen, displaying your computer screen, displaying your computer screen, displaying your computer screen. They grab your keyboard and mouse and start playing. You look past him. The open window calls for you. You answer. You resist the urge to look back at yourself as you climb outside, but you're weak and steal a final glance. You see yourself staring wordlessly at a computer, but the screen now shows your own perspective. The real you. You can feel a pressure growing behind your temples, so you quickly leave. It's night now. You pass back through the flat trees, the following bushes, and down the flat, low-quality driveway. The light from inside the Cessna draws you like a moth to a flame, a perfect replica amongst a sea of low-polygon abstractions. You sit down inside. You feel the leather seats cradle you. You hold the control column and it holds you back. You feel safe. This is comfortable. This is familiar. You must still have all the assists enabled because taking off is second nature. The alien world gets harder and harder to distinguish as distance masks the imperfection. From up here, the world is exactly as you remember it. No jagged edges or mismatched bushes betray the illusion Microsoft spent so long developing. You fly up further still. From this altitude, buildings cease being individual objects, transforming instead into tiny pixels that make up the image of a cityscape. As spectacular as the sky and clouds were during the day, the night brings a whole new beauty to the virtual world. An endless ocean of darkness peppered by millions of individual lights, like reflections of the stars. Just you and your single-engine plane floating in the middle of it. You sail through the sea for hours. It is enchanting. The freedom is unlike anything you have ever experienced, or anything you will ever experience. As perfect as this moment is, you know now just as you knew before. You can't exist like this forever. This is, after all, just a game. You're well over the Pacific now. The city lights were replaced instead by an endless void of nothing. You don't know how high you are, and you don't want to know. Knowing makes it so much worse. You feel yourself push forward on the control column. You don't want to, but you aren't in control anymore. The plane tilts downwards. You're afraid. The stars are gone now, replaced entirely by the watery void. The void you are rapidly approaching. A Cessna 152 has a maximum speed of 302 kilometers an hour. With an attack angle as aggressive as yours, you've well surpassed that speed. Any second now, you'll hit the water and your plane will never be seen again. You wonder if the developers added detail for a situation like this. Perhaps it's too morbid. You'll find out soon. You can't resist. You glance at your altimeter. 5,000 feet. 4,000 feet. Without the use of your altitude indicator, you'd think you were cruising normally. It's only when you look closely you realize you were nearly vertical. 3,000 feet. 2,000 feet. The Cessna was never meant for speeds of this magnitude. The air resistance grabs at anything it could find. The whole plane vibrates aggressively, as if it too feels your fear. 1,000 feet. You think of the other you, playing Microsoft Flight Simulator. You wonder if he feels the same way you do when you fly. 500 feet. You say goodbye to everything you ever knew. 250 feet. 100 feet. This is it. You hold your breath. I give Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 an 8.5 out of 10.